Welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Patterns, patterns, patterns. That's what this episode is going to be about. We all live them, we repeat them, and they get us into a whole lot of trouble. If you are someone who has watched and observed themselves fall into the same darn pattern over and over again, then this episode is for you. I always say we are not living a life, we are living a pattern. And the reason I say that is because what we learned in childhood or in our early years is what we tend to repeat. Now, I'm not blaming childhood for all our neuroses, but hey, those early patterns, they stick like glue, and it's really hard to separate from them until and unless we first become aware of them, and that takes a lot of courage. And two, we work really hard to pivot away from them. We learn new ways of being, and that's what this episode is all about. Joining me next are two sisters, Logan and Madison, who are afraid about how they're going to raise their boys without a father figure. I am now joined by two women, Logan and Madison, two sisters, who are both questioning their ability to raise boys. One of them, Madison, is currently expecting a boy, and Logan has two sons already. But they say that they came from girl families, so they're comfortable with girls. They have sisters. They don't know what it is they're doing with these boys, and so they're nervous and they're wondering how to raise boys without father figures because both of them currently don't have men in their lives. So let's hear more from Madison and Logan. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So, Madison, why don't you give us a brief synopsis of your current conflict or concern?
Well, I'm the oldest of four girls. So my whole life, I would say I've been raising, my sisters, and my mom is a single mom. So I felt I needed to step in and help her with the kids and things like that. So now I'm finding myself in a position where I am now pregnant and this is my first baby. So, and unfortunately, the father is not in the picture and I'm having a boy. So I know how to raise girls because I've been raising them my whole life. But now that I'm having a boy, I do have a lot of concerns with how to raise him without his father, because I know the things that I went through growing up without my father. And I just would like some more information on just kind of what I know he will be going through and the ways that I need to show up for him in order for him to have, the best possible life he can.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Logan, I know you have two sons. And are you also concerned about raising them without a consistent father figure?
When I first had Brighton, I kind of was because I didn't know what I was going to do. But he's 3 now, and I think I've done a pretty good job so far with him. He's out of control, but he's a 3-year-old. I just feel like if I don't know what to do with him properly, he's going to go down the wrong path, regardless of if he has me and another parent or just me.
Okay, great. So I have two levels of answers and insights for you. One of them is a deeper level, so I'm going to get to that in a bit. I'm going to first give you a more surface, quicker, easier to apply insight. Okay, so the first layer is, to address your concern. Oh my goodness, I only know girls. I don't know how to raise a boy, which is such a legitimate concern, but let me relieve you immediately, okay? So, because you've been around so much estrogen, right? So many girls, you didn't have a father figure growing up. You were the mother, really, Morgan, of all these daughters. That's why you're so concerned. You're like, I can do the girls well. Look how amazing Logan turned out. Look how amazing I turned out. But you're nervous about a boy, as if you're going to give birth to this alien being, right? You're like, who's going to come out of my uterus? So let me just calm you down and tell you, while you thought you were raising girls, and yes, girls are sometimes, quite unique, different from boys, what you were doing, you were raising a child. And you already know how to raise children. You're already ahead of the curve. People think, in terms of these gendered roles. And I want people to realize that children, especially young children under the age of 10, are, for lack of a better word, spirits, right? These wild spirits, these beautiful, free, unencumbered beings in the body of a girl or the body of a boy, a female or male. But how they express their sex, that is known as gender. So their gender expression can be all over the spectrum, right? You could get a female body with a real tomboy gender expression, and you could get a real male body with a more feminized gender expression. So don't get locked into how the gender will be expressed. Just lock into the child as a free being and following the child's lead, whether boy or girl. If you have a girl and she's a female, right, and she's very boisterous, does that mean she's being anti female or less female? No, you're going to follow her spirit. If you have a boy and he hates playing rugby or soccer or ball and likes to play with dolls, are you going to now shame him and say, oh, you're such a wimp or a sissy or a girl? No, you're not going to. Those are archaic labels that culture has been putting on us, and we don't have to buy into that. So we will follow our children's lead, and you've already been doing that. So just don't focus on the girl or the boy. Focus on what is my child's essence from within, and how can I follow that lead?
I love that. It makes a lot of sense too. Yes. I guess it's like changing your perspective on things. We were so conditioned to be a particular way, honestly, in our lives. So just seeing it from a different point of view, it's helpful.
Yes, and you used the absolute correct word. You have been conditioned. Culture conditions us what it means to be a boy and what it means to be a girl. But now, in this new wave of consciousness, we are breaking those gender stereotypes. We are breaking those rigid ways of looking at our ways to express ourselves in the world. And there's more gender fluidity. There's more ease. There's a spectrum now than when you were raised. So just before we move on from this topic to a deeper level, let me ask you, Madison, 3 words or qualities that you associate with the word girl.
Nurturing, fun, optimistic.
Okay, now Logan, when you hear her say that, you have boys. Don't you think your boys are also nurturing, fun, and optimistic?
Yeah, very much so.
Right. So you see, it's not gender specific. It's not sex specific. You're right. Those are your conditionings around that word. And you've just gotten attached to that very rigid way of looking at this is what a girl does and that's what a boy does. What if you just blow it all up and just don't put a label on it? Then you can follow your child's lead, right?
Yes.
So don't come with this baggage. That's the conditioning you're coming into this journey with. Oh, she's not a girl. It's not a girl. It's a boy. Therefore, I have to be a different kind of human. No, you just have to be the same loving, beautiful Madison that you've been all along. That's what your child needs from you. There's no such thing as, oh, there's such a thing as a boy mom and a girl mom, right? No, you are a mom, and that's what your child needs. A mom, a human with an open heart. So keep it at that level and you will just be so excited no matter who shows up. Because when we lock ourselves into, oh, I'm having a boy, he's going to, play the trombone and he's going to be a soccer player. What if that child doesn't like any of those things? So we want to keep ourselves open.
And I think the thing is, like I said, we were so conditioned by my mom to be a certain way and act a certain way. And I mean, ultimately, it led me to the career that I have and how I am personally. So even stepping away from my life and what I am conditioned to believe, and then also stay open-minded with, I live with her kids and her, so I see how they act. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, is this how he is gonna act? And I would say I have a little more patience than she does. So at times I'm okay with it. I know that they're supposed to be open-minded and playful and, I just have a lot of questions when it comes to mainly about like the father figure and how from what I understood growing up without my father, the things that I was feeling, how do they not feel those things? Or how do we need to show up, for them to not go down the path that, we struggled.
There you go. There you go. And that's where I wanted to take us. That's the deeper layer for both of you because you both grew up without a consistent father figure. And that really is the wounding. That's really the concern. That's your place of hurt and void. So there are two layers to that. Number one is your idea of men, right? Because that's going to influence how you look at your sons. So let me ask you, Logan, give me the first three words that come to your mind that you used when you thought of a man growing up. The first three things you thought of men growing up.
Mean, dishonest, and disrespectful.
So growing up, little Logan had a very clear belief system around masculine energy or male energy, right, Logan? Because your father wasn't around, is that correct?
He was in and out.
So in and out means inconsistent and unpredictable, right? So you developed a belief system that father figures or males can be mean, can be disrespectful, and dishonest. So that means you had some pain around that.
Yeah,
Probably still does too.
Yeah, I know this is probably making you uncomfortable, Logan.
I said just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So as a little girl, that was a void, that was a hole, that was an emotional need that did not get met. And it's still here. I can see it in your face right now as I'm looking at you, and I can hear it in your voice. It's something you haven't fully healed yet. And you're young, so it's a journey.
I don't think I ever really will because he passed away. So I never really will know everything
Yes,
from
yes.
exposure.
And I may have an insight for you that I'll get to at the end.
I also have a statement on that as well. So my father from the very beginning was not around, and her father stepped in at one point in time and was my father figure, and he was a great dad when he was there and he was present. So I grew up, I guess where I'm going with this is, my real father was not around. And then when I was old enough to kind of reach out to him and say, hey, after all these years, what went wrong? I still didn't get the answers that I was looking for. And I kind of took it as, okay, well, I still tried. And now I'm at this point where I'm old enough to really understand, the things that he went through and the things that I put myself through because of him. They didn't match up. So I was like, okay, well, even though he wasn't around, I still tried to come back and I still didn't get the answers I was looking for. And I kind of had to make peace with that. She said is still kind of looking for those answers, but I don't think you really even get them. It's just kind of, you have to make peace with it. And it is what it is because there's not really things that we can understand that they're going through or
Yes.
how they're thinking to,
Yes.
they have their
Yes.
own problems and they're their own person. So
Yes, yes. And
How
I'm
do-
going to piggyback on that at the end of this discussion. So Madison, now your turn. What were three words or belief systems you had around males when you were a child, given that you also had inconsistent fathering?
a big one, I was made uncomfortable
Uncomfortable?
with anyone that would come around that was a male figure, especially older men.
Yes.
And so the next one I would say is inconsistent and unreliable.
Unreliable. Beautiful. So, two things I want to point out to both of you. It is this, the discomfort, the meanness, the disrespectfulness, the dishonesty, the unreliability, right? That both of you are saying you believed that males were because of how your father showed up. It is that that is making you uncomfortable, not the actual sex of the human in front of you. It is those qualities that make us uncomfortable. It just so happens that those qualities happen to be all around males in your life, but it's not the male. You now have a stepfather who actually shattered those belief systems and actually is a more present father. So, what I'm trying to tell you is that here you are thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know how to be around boys. But what you're really saying is all those qualities of unreliability, dishonesty, discomfort, that's showing up, and you don't know how to be around those feelings that you still have around your childhood. It just so happens to be in the body of a male, but it's those feelings that are making you uncomfortable now. So you may project those feelings onto your sons because you're so used to associating those feelings with males. So what I'm asking you to do today is to separate those. The reason you're hurt, the reason you had a void in childhood, the reason you are in pain around your childhood is because of those qualities of unreliability, inconsistency, meanness, dishonesty. Those qualities could have been present in the most, oldest, smallest looking grandmother, and you would have still had pain, right? So you've associated that with the male figure. And that's why having a son feels uncomfortable to you because you've associated so much negative charge around boys.
I do have I guess, a loaded question, if you will. So as far as like our relationships with men and the father figures that we, had our kids with, I think they exhibit a lot of characters that, our fathers had. And we kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, well, they may not be like our fathers, but then they ended up turning out exactly like our fathers.
This is so beautiful.
So I guess my question is like, I know obviously how we were raised kind of conditioned us to be a certain way when we're even seeking out relationships. And like, we know what's wrong and what not to look for. We've been through enough to understand that. But now we're at a point where I don't even think I know what a healthy relationship looks like because I've never even seen it
I love
from,
it.
someone who even with my mom, like seeing her be in a healthy relationship with a father figure or a husband, like we've just never seen that.
Yes.
And when my mom was with our stepdad who adopted us, it wasn't always a healthy, happy environment. And
Just like any marriage, really.
yeah, I more so got negative treatment from him up until the day my mom left.
Mm,
And
mm.
I started to get treated better by him. But I think that was maybe more so like his own problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really know. It just stopped one day.
I hear you. So your question really is, how does a child go on to have healthy relationships when they witness so much inconsistency, angst, chaos, unreliability, inconsistency in the environment when they were so vulnerable? So here's my, quick insight for you in this moment. As you know, we repeat patterns. So you both thought you wouldn't repeat the pattern, but you did. You know why you repeated the pattern? Because it has nothing to do with the person you chose. You thought, okay, you know what? This person I'm with right now doesn't look anything like my father. This one is from, whatever, Pakistan or, Guatemala, and my father was from Germany. Whatever. We think we are choosing different people, and then lo and behold, we end up in exactly the same place. And the two of you are scratching your heads. Y'all are like, we know better. We know that men can be mean and inconsistent. We're even able to describe it so well, but yet we fell for the same kind of person. Now, here's why. It has nothing to do with the person outside. Your relationship with yourself is now the one that is broken. And because that relationship is broken from childhood, because you were never fully seen for who it is you are authentically, it doesn't matter, girl or boy, you were never seen for who it is you are, for your truth. The adults in your life were so preoccupied with their own chaos that they couldn't tune into you. Your mother had so many different partners coming in and out. You, Madison, you were the mother, right? So imagine how little you got parented, you got mothered. Very, very little. And you, Logan, if you're mothered by Madison, you were mothered by another little girl. So you also lost out. So this lack of early parenting, mothering really, in your childhoods has left your inner children abandoned, has left your inner children ignored. And without you realizing, y'all are pretty inconsistent and unreliable to your own inner children now because you're mirroring the parenting you saw or you got. So the reason you're attracting the same relationships outside is because it's mirroring your inner disconnection. So my suggestion to clients when they come to me falling into the same pattern is you need to take a relationship hiatus. It's not the time to find a relationship on the outside. Now is your opportunity, your invitation, your moment to go within and cultivate that deep inner relationship. And so, Madison, this boy who's coming into your life needs not a boy mom, not a girl mom. He needs a whole and present mother who understands herself, who loves herself. So instead of saying, oh my goodness, I'm scared, I don't know how to be a boy mom, what I need you to shift that to is, oh my goodness, I'm so excited because this is my opportunity to mother myself.
Yes. Yes. That's beautiful. I had goosebumps.
And Logan, just to tie it all together, what Madison said is so true. Finding peace with broken people will always leave you feeling incomplete. So even if your father was right here and you could scream at him and yell at him and say, why did you do that? If he hasn't healed himself, if he hasn't cultivated what I'm asking you to cultivate, he's not going to ever, living or dead, give you the solace you need. That solace can only come from a complete and whole person who's on their journey towards healing. So your father, who's already dead now, he never did that work. So if he was alive, he would still have to do a lot of work to give you that peace you are missing. So Madison is right. It's now time to give it to yourself.
I think also at the same time, I feel like she kind of got cheated out of her time to make it work because he is now passed. So she feels like she doesn't even have the opportunity anymore. So he was getting better. And then unfortunately, a circumstance kind of took that. So I think she's more so just like upset that she kind of got like cheated out of her time to actually make amends.
Yeah. And whenever we feel cheated on, whenever we feel like life got us, that sense of feeling victimized is going to keep us stuck and paralyzed, right? We can also look at it in another way that, oh, we saw him improve. We didn't see the destination, but we could have also witnessed him go downhill again. So you didn't get to see that. And life is unpredictable, but we have to find the jewels to allow us to have courage versus look at the weeds that are going to keep us stuck. That's a choice you have to stay feeling victimized or say, you know what? I got Madison to be my surrogate mother for so many years. I've got two beautiful boys and enter the present moment.
She has gotten a lot. She has gotten a lot better with it. I can say that.
Well, and you have each other. So that is huge to have this sisterhood, this deep understanding where you both can help each other mother each other. So
I think the coolest part too that now I'm pregnant is we actually have more in common now. We're both mothers, we're both boy moms, we're both single moms. So, we understand a lot more than we think now. And it's just a new chapter for us. We're still healing from generational trauma. So we've actually gotten closer because of the circumstances that we've been going through.
that is so beautiful. You both are just such a lovely pair. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your heart with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Joining me next is Brett. Brett is raising his 2-year-old son with his husband And their current problem is that they both have completely different parenting styles. So, parenting is hard enough on our own. It becomes even harder when we have a partner who brings their emotional baggage into the mix. So now you have your own ancestral legacy of all this chaos and unhealed wounds and childhood issues. But then when you have a partner, guess what? You have to deal with their baggage as well. And that's exactly what Brett, who is my next guest, is struggling with. Here's Brett. Welcome, Brett. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us what you're struggling with.
I am personally working very hard to consciously parent and release a lot of my own childhood stuff, and it's been a journey. As you know, it's a journey. But my husband, who agrees with this, and we've been doing certain parenting method to help our child, and we both are very committed to it, and we talk a lot about our family histories and emotional stuff that's coming up. But I see him so often throughout the day, every day, reacting to our son, who just turned 2, really out of his egoic state. I think most oftentimes it's not conscious for him, it's just impulsive, but I see it and it's so clear to me. And in the moment, sometimes I'll say something like, oh, you might want to reframe that, or he feels attacked, he gets defensive, he usually rolls his eyes and says, okay, Brad, and now I find myself not saying anything, and then I'm almost like swallowing this impulse to partly my own baggage of codependency and wanting to fix, but also a bit of a control issue from my own ego, wanting everything to be perfect. And I guess what I need help with is, how do I let go of that part of me that wants to help him become more aware and enlightened in the moment? Also, mostly, I want to help my son react out of this egoic reaction that my husband's having to his needs. And it's a real struggle for me sometimes, because it brings up a lot of stress. I work from home, so I'm hearing them screaming at each other in the background.
Yeah.
It's a distraction, and it's exhausting.
Yes. And it's probably rekindling a lot of your old trauma, which you've been suppressing since childhood and now you're working on. And you don't want to enact your own childhood trauma again either. This is so hard, Brett. I think what you're speaking to is literally one of the most common issues. Every summit I go to, every conference, it's the first or second question. Dr. Shefali, I'm trying to be more conscious, but my partner, they're well-meaning and they love my kid, but they're just not able to see it. And they're acting out all the time. So this session is going to help so many people. So I really appreciate you. So the first thing I would ask you is, if you could pick a number when it's the worst between your son and his father, what number? When they're both going at each other, what number is the volatility on a scale of 1 to 10?
I would say it's a 9.
Very high, right? And you're watching, and this is what happens, right? Our children absorb all our emotions. They mimic us, they model us. So now you're seeing right in front of your eyes a mini version of your partner in bloom. And I'm sure that causes so much anxiety as well.
100%.
Yes. So here you have one partner, you, who's more attuned, softer, more in touch with their heart and feminine energy, working hard to heal. And there you see the other partner just blow it all up to smithereens. And you're like, no, stop. But you don't know how much to step in. You don't know, you don't want to make it a marital issue now, because very soon that's what happens. You see, your differing parenting styles or your differing emotions soon becomes a marital issue. And soon it's coming into the bedroom. And I can fully understand that you're feeling stuck, and you're a fixer, and you're a deeply feeling person, so you don't know where your boundaries are, correct?
That's correct. And even when I reached out, I was feeling this resentment, right? On a daily basis, starting to resent, like, I can't get anything done. I'm so distracted because he's not emotionally evolved or whatever, like I was making up in my head.
Yep. Yep.
So you're right. It was feeling like, okay, is this a marital issue? Is this something that we need to couples counsel about? I don't know. And maybe it is, but I just know, like, the stress on our son is really, for me, the bigger concern, because I know my husband will evolve in his own time and maybe at a slower pace or never. I don't know. But that's my concern.
You hit both the two very important points that I want to make. Number one, you're absolutely accurate. Your husband will evolve at his own pace, but he's an adult. But this little space, this little sanctuary that our children have in their early childhood is key for their development. And the more that sanctuary gets disrupted, polluted, contaminated, which it does, with all of our crap, all of our burdens and chaos, then that sanctuary gets shattered before our children are ready. And that's what your concern is. So that's level one. Level two of this problem, which again, many couples go through, Brett, so you're not alone, is that it does become about the couple. It becomes about the marital issue. I'll tell you why. Because when one partner is saying, hey, can you please, flush the toilet? Okay, I'm giving you a generic example. Can you please flush the toilet? Can you please put back your socks? Can you please, turn off the lights? And the other partner says, yeah, I will. But then they don't follow through. That is the beginning of a rupture that builds resentment. And that's why you've been feeling resentful, because you didn't bargain to be everybody's mother, right? You didn't bargain to be everybody's parent. You wanted to be with a very, whole, or at least attempting to be whole human who could handle their own baggage and show up as an adult for your son. So I can see how this is such a struggle, and it's so resonant with so many people's issues. So many relationships go through this. And we have to make decisions. Okay, so here's what I'm here to help you with. How do we navigate this very treacherous situation? Because I'm sure your partner feels as if you are turning against him when you take your son's side. Does that happen?
It does. Yeah. And when it's a 10 for him, he will literally just walk away. Like, he will literally just walk out of the room, fine, and kind of abandon us in a way, right? In that moment, because that's his experience.
So your husband does a lot of fighting and then he flees.
Well, we will be in the room together, let's say in diaper change, right? And Maverick is having a tantrum. But my husband will react out of his emotional baggage to that tantrum. And I'll try to calmly in the moment say, that's not helpful in this moment. Let's just take a deep breath. And he goes, fine, walks out and abandons, right? And then we have a conversation about that, right? That's his approach. So it is definitely a hard thing to know how to speak to him.
Yes. Yes.
In those moments.
Yes, this is definitely a couples related issue. So your partner's name is Stephen?
Yes.
So you see, when you are correcting Stephen, hey, Stephen, tone it down. Stephen, it's just a child. He didn't mean it. Stephen hears you are bad, right? So Stephen is reenacting his childhood. And in that moment, Stephen doesn't realize it, but he sees you as the punishing parent, right? So Stephen has issues from his childhood that he's enacting right in that moment, even when you are lovingly bringing him to task and lovingly saying, hey, let's not act this out in front of our son. Stephen looks at you as the punishing parent and stomps out, because that's what he probably did as a child. So here's what you need to do as the one caught in the middle, right? You're caught in the middle of both these energies. You have to be a parent to the real child and soothe the big inner child of Stephen, right? Oh my goodness. And have a job and clean the dishes and oh my goodness. So I feel you. And you're not alone. So many of us feel like we have to parent our partners, and that is a job we just don't want to do. We shouldn't have to do. And guess what? We can never do it. So, first, I want you to know you have to fire yourself from the job of parenting and educating your partner. Okay, I know that's hard for you to do, Brett, because you're a people pleaser, a fixer, but you are actually making it worse because you're taking the attention away from Stephen having to sit with his own emotional mess, and you're distracting the real issue to making it about you and him. The issue isn't you and him, but now all of a sudden it's becoming a couple's issue, you see? Let me give you an easier analogy. What if you were cleaning your son's diaper and the neighbor came in with a big drum set and a lot of confetti and was making a huge mess and distracting your son and just being completely obnoxiously unconscious? What would Brett say in the moment? Now say it exactly like how you would to that neighbor. What would you say?
I would say, excuse me,
Yes.
not in here, please.
Beautiful.
We're in the middle of something.
Beautiful. So you enter your authority, you create a boundary, and you say, this is not happening here. I don't care what your issue is. We're done, right? You take charge. So this is what you're not doing with your partner, right? Oh, okay, time out. And another therapist can help you both, make these rules, but you're not taking charge because you're scared, right? And why are you scared? Because it enters the bedroom. But because you're scared, it actually enters the bedroom even more. So you need to tell him, like, we need to have a sign between us. When one of us is going over the edge, the other one just tells the other one, time out, leave the room, I got it. And that's it. And then you need to go outside later on and tell your partner, this is why you need to go to therapy. For the next 55 days, as long as it takes until you get tired of saying it, or the partner does go to therapy. Because you being this pseudo therapist, pseudo parent, is just making it worse. So stop playing pseudo parent to your partner. We can never be pseudo parents to our adult partners. All of us try at different points in our lives, and it always backfires on us. Like, why are we the bad person? Because you're stepping out of your lane. And number two, I'm here to tell your partner that, and hopefully he'll hear this, and other parents out there who may lose their temper with their little ones, I want you to know you're not a bad person. You mean well, but your childhood pain is showing up in a way that you can't control, and you need help because your little one doesn't deserve to be at the receiving end of all your unhealed childhood pain. So the best thing you can do, Brett, for yourself and your family, create the boundary, create the ultimatum. Stephen, I love you. I see what great potential you have, but this dynamic, this triangle is falling apart. And I'm firing myself from fixing it. I'm giving you an ultimatum to get yourself into therapy. I'm happy to come to couples therapy, but we need help. Just the last question before we wrap up. When I tell you, Brett, step into your masculine energy, create that boundary, what comes up for you?
I mean, there is a lot of fear, as you mentioned, and I think there is a fear of, one of the things you mentioned, I think it was really, really poignant. Well, everything you do is poignant, but I think that, what's interesting for me is when I come into that space of ownership, I don't have experience of seeing parents do that.
Yes.
Right? I don't have that experience, so it's uncharted territory.
Yes. But guess what? Because you didn't have parents that stepped in to protect you, you don't know what that energy feels like. But you have it toward your son. Step into that. Your son needs you to become that mother bear energy. Very nurturing, very loving, not going crazy, but very protective and caretaking. Step into that mother bear, that power, and roar and announce that now the mother bear is in charge. Because your partner, Stephen, when he's acting out like a 3-year-old, he's unconscious. He's not in his right mind. He's not aligned. He's disconnected. He's dissociated. He's in a panic. You know that. He's in his ego. What is ego? Ego shows up when we're anxious. You are looking at him being ferocious, but I want you to realize he's a little tantruming toddler, just like your 2-year-old. So we have to separate the 3-year-olds from each other and put one in one room, and we take charge. And I know you have this within you if you just realize that your son needs you to step into that protective mama bear energy.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. It's time for you to grow up, Brett. Be the adult that you never saw in your own childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been a challenge, especially, when our parents come around, or, it kicks up a lot of our own childhood stuff. And I think as two dads as well, there's a lot of baggage that comes in society. So I think we're both living in a lot of fear, and I'm afraid that to criticize him. I was going to ask you, the biggest challenge I have is when they're in that reaction and I can't help, but I can hear it.
Yes.
When I'm in here and I'm working and I hear
Yes.
that happening,
Yes.
and I can't be a mama bear in that moment.
Yeah, because you're freezing. But you need to understand that in that moment, your 2-year-old is also panicking. He cannot handle the rage of an adult showing up as a 3-year-old. So you need to separate the adult tantrumer from the real child. This is what you're being called to do. And I know you're freezing because that's your childhood stuff. You're scared of your partner's ego. You're scared of your partner's shadow, so to speak. But therefore, your child is going to pick up on that and wonder, where is my protector? Who's protecting me now? See, you're thinking that if you step in and stop an adult's unconsciousness, you are actually ruining their right to be a father as they wish. You're thinking you are stepping in and interfering. No, you're stopping someone's unconsciousness. That's why I gave you the analogy of a neighbor who's being unconscious. It doesn't matter if it's the loveliest neighbor in the world. If they're being unconscious, we have to protect our children. So in that moment, you're looking at Stephen as an adult who is just trying to parent a child. And I'm telling you, he's not an adult in those moments. He has regressed to a 3-year-old having a temper tantrum rage that you have to protect your child from. So you're not criticizing him. You're just telling him, this cannot happen right here. Step out, time out. Now, he will hear it as a criticism because of his childhood issues. And that's why you have to go for couples therapy, and he has to go and do his own inner work.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
But freezing is your reenactment of your childhood trauma in that moment.
Yes. You're like in my brain, 100%.
Yes, you can do this. You can do this, Brett. Thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing.
Thank you.
Both of the parents we heard from today symbolize such common issues in our journey as adults. Most of us struggle with repeating patterns from childhood, but here's the thing, we often don't even realize we are. I always tell my clients that one of the first steps in our journey toward awakening and healing is to realize that we are in a pattern, to realize that we are living a pattern, to realize that our interactions, our relationships, all of it is a pattern. And part of awakening is that acknowledgement, is that recognition. You know, when I said to Brett, for example, you not stepping in to protect your son and freezing is your pattern, right? So these are patterns and they sneak up on us without us realizing. So our task as conscious beings is to recognize and become aware of our patterns. If we don't, we will relentlessly repeat them and create disconnection in our lives. However, when we begin to notice, that was a pattern. Oh my goodness, I did the same thing again. I rescued, I parented my partner. By the way, try not to do that ever. I just did the same thing. I didn't create a boundary. I said yes when I should have said no. When we begin to have peeks into our patterns, we may first feel discouraged because we realize, oh my goodness, I'm such a mess. But at the same time, it is this self appraisal, this self awareness that is the beginning of your journey toward evolution. If you'd like to be a guest on this podcast and get my help, this is how you can do it. Go to my Instagram page at Dr. Shefali and type the word podcast, or go to my website, drshefali.com, and click the podcast button. And I will see you next time on Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.